to do. This morning, I was to let the people go. It's a familiar phrase in my history, let my people go. But I was told to let the people go by a certain time. And now I'm told to hold you until a certain time. It has come time to preach the gospel, which is kind of awkward, preaching the gospel in this strange situation, because I'm just a preacher, and that's all that I'm interested in doing today. And it's very difficult to preach under these circumstances because I don't use manuscripts and what have you, and I say what comes to my mind. It'd be very difficult to preach to you when your mind is on something else without you associating what I'm talking about with what your agenda is. Well, I almost decided not to preach at all, just let you do your thing and give me a call once you had done it. But we may have visitors here who've come to hear the gospel, so I have to do something for them. But I will assure you that there's nothing in my sermon that is about voting and politicking. It is just a sermon that I decided on several weeks ago to preach today. I will also assure you that I'm not interested at this point in my life of being anybody or anything to anybody that they don't want me to be. I've worked in the public school system a long time so that in my old age I would be free from certain things. And I'm retiring because I'm free from those things. And actually it is not the retirement from the school system that frees me from it. It is what I did while I was working on my own that frees me. So I have no agendas for this sermon or this church except to do what I was asked to do when I first came here, and that was to preach the gospel. It is what I was interested in then and all I'm interested in now. At this point in my life, I'm not interested in doing anything but what I feel God is calling me to do. I'm not interested in preaching one sermon here beyond the point that you do not want me to preach to you. If God does not lay it on your heart, then I hope you'll take it off mine. I learned as a single person that you are in danger when you love anything or anybody more than it or they love you. That's a very dangerous thing. So I learned that very well. I want to please the Lord in everything that I do. And that is my objective. So one night I was meeting with a committee and one person asked me, do you have any personal goals? And I said, no. My personal goals have already been accomplished. By the time I was 30 years old, I preached all over the South, 14 states. I was on radio every Sunday preaching. I'm financially secure. I never have to make another penny in my life, and I will die and leave somebody money. I'm an accomplished orator, respected all over the country. My books are studied by college professors, and my ideas are used to teach teachers how to teach. So I don't want anything except to be wanted by the people who I want. So, having said that, nobody asked me about things, so I thought that at least you ought to know that before you vote. In the 24th chapter of the Gospel recorded by Luke, the 13th through the 15th verses, and behold, two of them went that same day to a village called And it came to pass that while they communed together and reasoned, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were holden that they should not know him. And he said unto them, what manner of communications are these that ye have one to another as you walk and are sad? Now, as the week progresses, I hope you will read the rest of that scripture. Today, that is all that I'm going to read. I will tell you the rest of the story. But I'd like to speak to you a few minutes on the subject of walk with Jesus. A walk with Jesus. These two disciples, these two distraught, despondent, and in some ways desperate disciples, were on their way to a city called Emmaus, which was not very far from Jerusalem. It was a walking distance. It was on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday after the resurrection. They did not know about the resurrection as a factual occurrence. They only knew about it as a rumor. They had endured an awful weekend. They had on Thursday been caught up in the trial of their young prophet. They had seen him march from judgment hall to judgment hall. They had heard him live on and denounced. They had seen him mocked and teased, and they had seen a fake robe put on him and a crown of thorns put on his head. They had seen all of that and followed him. And they had even seen them put him on trial and vote on him. And finally put him on the cross. They had seen him die, had heard his last words, had heard him ask the Father to forgive those who were doing such a cruel thing to him. And then heard him say, it is finished. And they had seen them take him down from the cross, place him in a tomb, and had heard his detractors say, it is indeed finished. Now they had had a terrible weekend. They had to live with that and try to get some sleep on Friday night. They had to talk about that and think about it all day Saturday and Saturday night, and here it was Sunday. They were on their way to Emmaus, and they heard that women had gone to anoint his body and found that it was empty. And now they go walking. You know, when things are on your mind, it helps to walk. So they go walking, talking. Now the Bible does not say exactly what they said. It's just that they were walking and talking. And they headed toward this Emmaus. And as they left Jerusalem, here they were leaving Jerusalem, leaving all of the turmoil of the weekend, leaving their problems and their promise, leaving all of that, going to Emmaus, begging to start all over, because their hopes had been dashed, their promise had been persecuted and pushed aside, and there they were going to another city. into your life. You don't always know when Jesus will step into your situation. He'll just walk along, and here, as they walk, Jesus joined them. They started walking with Jesus. All of us at one point in our lives claim to have had Jesus join us. This is a walk in this Christian journey with Jesus. And as these people walked, Jesus just joined them. This is an interesting quality about Jesus. You can beg Jesus for things. You can beg God for things and beg Him for them on your time. And God can, in His own time, give you what you ask for, even if you after you start to ask Him. So as these people walked along, Jesus joined them. Some of you were looking for a wife or a husband. And while you were looking, your wife or husband joined you. Jesus is like that. So these men were walking along, and Jesus joined them. Now, when Jesus joins you, there ought to be a difference in your journey from the time that Jesus joined you before He came along. And anyone who knows the Lord can pick up on the difference. They used to sing about joining the church in the South. I looked at my hands, and my hands looked new. They had this song they called, "How Did You Feel When You Come Out of the Wilderness?" And whenever somebody got off the longest bench and expressed a belief in Jesus, the church would just sing, "How did you feel when you come out of the wilderness? How did you feel when Jesus joined you?" They would say, "I looked at my hands, and my hands looked new. I looked at my feet, and they did too. I started to walk, and I had a new walk. I started to talk, and I had a new talk. I started to sing, and I had a new song." How did you feel? What is it about you this morning that you could use as evidence that Jesus is walking with you? What could you show us as a sign that Jesus is walking with you? What is the difference between your life now than it was before Jesus started walking with you? When Jesus walks with us, He diminishes our frustrations and allays our fears. When Jesus starts walking with us, He diminishes our frustration and allays our fears. Some of you came to church this morning frustrated, scared. Oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to our church? Well, it's not your church anyway. It's God's church. Notice when Jesus joined these people, He started talking to them about their fears. It's nice to have somebody in your crowd who's not worried about the stuff that you're worried about. You know, a lot of worried people don't do much good for each other. They're all scared. It's nice to have somebody who's not afraid, not intimidated, or excited by the stuff that's going on. Nothing bothers me. I'm not intimidated or excited by anything. I've overcome the world. Most of the stuff I mentioned that I have money. Well, the reason I have money is that most of the stuff that folks spend money on, I'm not even interested in. It's not that I made so much money. It's just that I don't care enough about the stuff that folks spend money on. I'll probably die and leave most of my money. Unless I get married. That's what my students tell me. Mr. Jenkins, you ought to get married. And the girls always say, you ought to get married. What you going to do with your money? And I said, I think it's disgusting that you think that a man does not have sense enough to spend money. That he has to have a wife to have him spend it. Tell me, you just need somebody. But I'm not even interested in the stuff that money can buy. The things that I'm interested in are more spiritual than material. They don't bother you. Jesus allayed your fears, and he talked to these folks. What are you all upset about? And they said, you mean to tell me you don't know? You don't know what happened in Jerusalem on the weekend. You don't know about this prophet who said he was the Son of God, and we believed that he was, and now he's dead. And Jesus said, well, if he really was the Son of God, then being dead is just temporary. And if he weren't the Son of God, it's a good thing you know it. Heaven doesn't give up. If this was the Son of God, then you'll see in the days to come what God will do. And if he was not the Son of God, now you'll know for sure. What are you afraid of? Jesus pointed them to the Scriptures and said, now you just look into the Scriptures and you will see that all of this is prophesied. And if you had been reading, if you had been praying, and if you had been trusting, you wouldn't have been as upset as you are. That's why I got upset about it. It's all in his hands. God will take care of me and you and his church. That is his church. Now you made it yours. Then it and you will be in trouble. Jesus, as he walks with us, comforts us with his presence. Comforts us with his presence. You know, sometimes we do things in this world and we have situations that are quite distressing. We get calls in the middle of the night and we find out that our loved ones are sick, and they are quite distressing. But Jesus comforts us and says, though I will come to shiver you, and I will comfort you, I will hold your hand, I will walk you through this difficulty. You know, one of the advantages, there are great many advantages of being married, but one of the advantages of being single is that you never have the illusion of having someone with you who may not be. You know that when it comes to the great issues of life, it's just you and Jesus. You have no one but Jesus. Now, thank God for those of you who are not in that situation. But it's nice to know that you can depend upon Jesus. That whatever you go through in this life, that Jesus is there with you, and he'll hold your hand, and he'll see you through it. I've always had that. On the highways late at night, traveling from city to city to lecture or to preach. I've always had that. I remember years ago, I won't say how long it was, some kid will say, oh, it's over time. But years ago, And we had this Volkswagen van that I had purchased, about 4 of us, young people working with me. And coming back from Ohio, Hiram College, happened to be a Christian school, disciple school. Coming back, it was snowing, and they were taking turns driving. And as the weather got worse and worse, and the snow was coming down faster and faster, and we saw big transfer trucks on the side of the road that had run off the road in the ice and the storms, they got quiet. And the young man who was driving pulled over to the side and said, "Reverend Jenkins, you better drive now." None of us was accustomed to snow. That's why we kept going. We thought that we get close to the Mississippi, the snow would go away. But they said, "Man, you drive." Because we trust that God is going to watch over us as long as you are driving. We got back to Mississippi safely. This idea of God being present, walking with you, is a strong incentive. Those of you who know that as a family, God is with you. As individuals, God is with you. And he walks you through life, and he comforts you. And finally, he helps you to keep going. I remember reading a poem once. If you strike a thorn a rose, keep it going. If it hails or if it snows, keep it going. 'Tain't no use to sit and whine when the fish ain't on the line. Bait your boat and keep on dry. Keep a-going. When the weather kills your crop, keep it going. Though 'tis work to reach the top, keep it going. Suppose you're out of every dime, keep it going. Getting broke ain't no crime. Tell the world you're feeling just fine. Keep it going. When it looks like all is up, keep it going. Drain the sweetness from the cup. Keep it going. See the wild birds on the wing, hear the bells that sweet will ring. Keep. When you feel like singing, sing. Keep it going. You see, when Jesus is walking with you, that's the thing he keeps in your life. Keep going. Just keep walking. We are together. Just keep walking. And eventually you'll get close enough to the city that you'll be drawn by the light of the city. Just keep walking. I remember my days of the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King would instruct his followers, the marchers, and the demonstrators. Be very careful not to incite anybody, not to give anybody a reason to do anything to you. You just line up, hold hands, and keep walking. When the dogs are barking at your heels, keep walking. When the policemen are shouting insults into your ear, keep walking. When the National Guards are raising their bayonets, keep walking. When the angry crowds shouting racial insults at you, you keep walking. You got your hand. It's in Jesus' hand. there is this story that I shall end with. This woman had this son who went off on a trip, and he went to some foreign country, to this beautiful city. And he went by plane. And every plane he got on, he had problems on that plane. First plane had engine trouble and had to land prematurely. And he called his mother and told her that we had engine trouble and the plane was forced to land. Now I'll call you from the next city. Got on the next plane, and on that plane he had difficulty with the weather. And they had to land because of the difficulty with the weather. And he called his mother and said, we're not there yet because the plane had to stop because the weather was so bad. It was tossed and turned. The storm was raging and the plane had to land. But I'll call you from the next spot. He got to another city and called his mother. Said, are you there yet? Said, oh, no, I'm not there yet. But I just want you to know that we're still on our way. Few problems on this plane, but we're getting there. And finally got to the last city where he was coming. He called his mother. Said, we're here. And she said, you're there? And he said, yes. Finally, after all that trouble, after all the engine problems on the plane, after all of the storm, after all of that trouble, we are here. You ought to see this city. It's worth all the trouble. I'm headed to a city. You've been worth all the trouble. We extend an invitation to the silence. If there's anybody here who would like to join the church, this is the one time. Sing it, Bruce. Let us sing.